Yo guys, if you're looking down and your heart's feeling empty, come have a laugh with us. I'm Shadow Soul 720. So what I'm going to be talking with you guys today about is Sigma, the new Overwatch character in Overwatch, and a guide on how to use him, or at least how I would use him. So I'm not saying this is perfect, and it's only been, what, a week or two into the official launch into the actual game, off the PTR. But I feel like I've got some pretty good tips. And I haven't seen these tips just anywhere. So, let's go. So, firstly, let me leave a note of, if you guys are playing on console, I recommend changing your jump button from the X button or the A button, depending on your controller, etc., to one of the bumpers. So like for me on the PlayStation 4, I've actually got it so that my left L2 button is jump button, and my X button is this biotic grasp sort of thing. This absorption. So, first note, this character doesn't have a lot of mobility, has a nice little barrier. You guys probably know him by now. Some unique things about his primary fire. They bounce off walls at least once. So you can see there it bounces off a second wall there, but it doesn't go a huge distance. But it can be really useful using this ability to get some bank shots in. Also, after 20 feet, it just explodes. So any targets that are within that range will get an AoE blasted, and they actually move slightly towards the ball. But the range that they move towards the targets aren't really much at all. About there maybe. This is also 20 meters right here. Sorry, 20 meters, not 20 feet. You see how they move, but not very far? Yeah. So it's not like you're going to be able to boop anyone off with that. It just means that if you're trying to fire from a distance like that, it can basically just make it easier for you to AoE hit them. So a lot of the time, it might be better for you to either land the shots directly on the opponents, or just to explode it within that 20 feet radius.
Entity terminated.
That's really nice. Something that a lot of people don't know about this ability is that you've actually got the time within it to get a melee attack out before you can fire it again, and you're not really spending any time. So that's also pretty unique. If I just spam the bullets, they just go at this speed. So it's not a huge difference. So if you are in close quarters, you can definitely just, I don't know, spam it. Or if you just want something else to do. Also by doing this, you can fire out just one ball if you wanted to, one sphere. Is there an advantage of that? No, probably not. So there's probably no point in doing that, but just realize that if you punch too fast, you might just send out one. Which, I don't know, depends on what you want to do. Alright, what else can I tell you guys? Whenever there's a big shield, and you want to try and shoot past it, make sure that you're banking the shots, because the most important thing is damaging the enemies on the other side, not actually breaking the shield generally. If there's nothing else to shoot at, then just shoot at the shield, that's fine. But, yeah. Normally you want to bank your shots. Or get it within that 20 meter range and just have it explode. Because you'll catch a few enemies with it. The Rock. The Rock's the next thing we're going to talk about. So the Rock's good for Tracer, Genji, little flankers like that. It's also a really good close-up tool. So say there's a whole bunch of enemies, there's an enemy like Tracer that's near you. If you're able to aim and get them, it's going to knock them down, and you'll be able to get the KO on them, most likely. The other thing is that it combos really nicely and just stacks up damage. So if you fire, put the rock out, and then fire some more, you can fairly easily wipe out someone's health. So make sure that you're firing in the spot where you knock them down, or you're hoping to knock them down, and you should be able to rack up a lot. Now, of course, you can cancel your abilities. What's it actually called? Kinetic Grasp, my bad. You can absorb damage, and then whenever you want during that, you can throw out a rock. But you want to be careful when doing this, because I'm fairly sure you don't get shields. Yeah, you don't get shields if you cancel it early. So make sure you fully use the ability generally before spamming a rock. Also, this ability, it only works if you're looking at the targets. So if you're trying to absorb bullets, make sure that you're looking towards the direction. So if I look this way and I use it, I'm not absorbing anything, right? That was bad timing, but I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. So what I generally do is I wouldn't wait until I'd wait until you're about half health before using it. Because that way, even if you accidentally take some more damage, you're gonna get your shielding back at the end of it. But if you use it on too lower health and you're surrounded or something, you're not going to be able to absorb all the damage and you're just going to die. Alright. Other things about the bolters, they are really good up close tools. You can just combo them with your normal primary fire to get more damage in there. But also when I'm coming down into the battlefield, normally what I'll do is I'll just try and throw a rock in, because they do go a decent distance, and you can try and bank some shots in before you even get there. So just like when you're walking back to the field, just go, maybe about there. Eventually you'll get the aiming of it, there won't be a ceiling. And I don't know, you can play around with that. That's pretty fun to do. I don't know if it does much else but have fun, but yeah. Alright, so next we're going to be talking about his, what's it called? Kinetic Grasp ability, where he absorbs damage. So, although this is a great ability and can save you, it won't work against lasers, so it won't work against things like Zarya, or Mei with her freeze, or Symmetra, and I'm assuming that means it also won't work for Symmetra turrets, so be wary of that. It does have quite the long cooldown, so generally what I'd do is I'd use it kind of like you would a Genji blade, or a Batiste immortality field, disc lamp thing, in that you just want to kind of wait until you've taken lots of damage, you want to save it, and then you want to bust it out. And it's also really useful because it can eat some of the enemy's ultimates in the game. Some of these ultimates include things such as Roadhog's ultimate, which you can get a lot of usage off. It can absorb most of Pharah's ultimate, just as frames from above, not all of it. So I'd wait, I'd put a shield up against that and try and get her to kill herself that way, or just avoid the first half, but then you're probably, letting your team get attacked, so make sure you block some of it, then bring your shield down and, I don't know, Biotic Grasp the last half. And you should get a lot of shielding from that. You can also absorb Reaper's ultimate. In that case, it's probably better not to put a shield down unless it's solely to protect your team from it. Or if you're readying your Biotic Grasp, because you can absorb a lot of bullets from that, and I think it lasts the duration of his Die Death Blossom animation. So that's also really useful. Other things you can grab, Mei's ult, Zarya's Graviton Surge, Tracer's Pulse Bomb, Hanzo's arrows, as well, his Spaghetti Dragons. But these things all are a little bit harder to grab, and you generally want to wait. You generally have to get it perfect. So like if Hanzo's firing his dragon, you have to catch the arrow immediately. Right? As soon as the arrow is coming towards you, you have to grab it. You can't absorb the dragon itself, just the arrow. Same with Mei. You can't absorb the damage from freeze. If Mei freezes you in any way, you're dead basically, because you can't use any of your abilities and you won't get shielding. So Mei's a huge counter to this guy. So make sure that you are careful with this, because it doesn't work against everything. Another good way to use it is when you want to normally put your shield out and use that as much as possible, and then once it starts to get low, you want to charge through with this, have some shielding, just moving the team upwards slowly towards whatever goal it is, and then hopefully your shield will be recharged, and then you keep going. And you just kind of do that strategy, or you wait for like an ultimate, or when your health starts getting low, you bust it out. Various things like that. The rock can also knock people off the edge a little bit, but it's pretty hard to do. Oh, something else about Biotic Grasp, Kinetic Grasp, is that when you're fighting McCree, if you can predict his flashbang, and he goes to left click, right click you, secondary fire, then you're going to be absorbing all of his bullets. So against McCree with this character, you get to worry quite a lot yet less, and that's really nice. Woo! It is possible to boot people off the edge, as you can see there. The barrier. Let's talk about that. The barrier is a huge part of Sigma's kit, and one of the most important things to him, and the only thing that really makes him a tank, I'd say, apart from his large health and ability to eat damage somewhat. So if you just push the button, nothing happens, right? You have to push and hold it down in order to send it far out. Now the thing about this is Sigma's gameplay is all around this barrier. You have to make sure that once it starts, whenever you're not in battle and you can afford to take it away, you want to take it away and restore it, because it only restores its shields when you've retrieved it. Until then, I'd recommend using things like Biotic Grasp. It's important to know that as important as the barrier is, you also want to make sure that you're saving your teammates' lives more than conserving its health, because your teammates are always going to be more important. If there's a Diva Bomb or something like that, remember that you can kind of just place the barrier down in front of where the Diva Bomb's going off, even if it's at low HP, and it will still, I think, shield you somewhat. So important to remember things like that. If you're fighting someone up close, which is one of Sigma's biggest weaknesses, if not specifically the one where he doesn't have much movement, is that he's not very good up close, because it's hard to hit someone who's moving up when you've got such a slow and direct projectile. What you want to do is aiming at the ground when near an enemy can serve to be useful. Like I said before, the rock is a pretty good option. But something else that I've found that's pretty great is you just put the barrier there. Oop, that's a little bit far. And you want to play around it, right? So you'd be like here, you shoot the enemy, and then if they move to this side of the barrier, you just move to the other side. You add your punches in here, because like we said, it doesn't change any time. Make sure you're aiming at them, because your aim is always super important as this character. And then if you stall it out long enough, you might even have your rock back if you've already used it once. And then of course, you know, you've got your grasp, but that has a way longer cooldown than the rock. So the rock's almost, and now it's back. And that's most of the basics about the shield. When you're coming back into the fight, obviously it's nice to just be able to send the shield out and cover your teammates that are already way out there. If you're trying to, you can block snipers, so like if that was a sniper, you could just put it up there and block it. If that was a sniper block, you guys kind of get it. You have to think about whether or not it's more important to block the sniper's one little window, or if it's more important to just shield your team from down here like this. Like, do you want the barrier close to you or further away? And generally, it's going to be more important to do that. Something else you can do is if you see a teammate up there trying to snipe down here or something, you know, if you've got a sniper, right, you can actually put your barrier in front of them, and then they can shoot through the barrier, right? And that's going to give them a lot of shielding. And then while they're sniping other people, you can actually go do your own fight with your team and press on. And then once you notice that their barrier is getting a bit low, maybe warn them and bring it away. It's a lot about just knowing where to place the barrier and what's going to help. Making sure you retrieve it back all the time. Being able to fight with it in close range. Being able to block the right things off. That's pretty much Sigma, I'd say. So there's quite a bit of stuff you have to focus, like especially when it comes to the barrier. Yeah, I mean if you really want, you could probably put the barrier over your head like that, but yeah, maybe not. Something else to note about the barrier is that when you're deploying it, you can't use any of your other skills, and you can't shoot. Actually, you can go for his ultimate, but it stops you from moving the barrier. So once you do place the barrier though, you do have a second window to be able to start shooting through it as soon as it's placed. And that can be useful. But generally, yeah, you can't use any other abilities, so just be wary of that. Know that if you, say, jump and look down, it might send up the barrier at a slightly different angle had you have not jumped. So jumping can matter a little bit, but not really. Some other tips about Sigma. You guys, if you really want to, can bind buttons to his reload. Just because he's not going to be reloading ever, so the reload button is useless in this case, and if you prefer pushing reload for an ability, go for it. It might get confusing though, so I don't recommend. When it comes to Sigma's ability, it feels like it charges rather slowly, in my opinion. It could just be because I am not that good with the character yet. But it's important to note that when you use it, you create a circle on the ground like Doomfist. As you can see. You can also float by holding the jump button. You've got a bit of time. And you've got the time to attack enemies as well. Good phrase, Sigma. And it can be really useful to just float up onto the high ground like this. Because from here, you can look down. You can spam, well, if you were Junkrat, you could spam grenades. Spamming these spheres of gravity are also pretty great. And from this position, the enemies down there don't have a lot of chance to... It's a lot harder for them to look up and hit you. Right? And it also means that maybe you have a lot more view of the map. And you can go and... with the right button pressing, place a shield down. And maybe potentially save allies, or give them some cover. So being on high ground is pretty good. It's probably not worth using it just for that ability, just to get up on high ground and float. But it is pretty cool that Sigma has that option. Something I forgot to mention about his shielding earlier though, is that wherever your cursor looks, that's where your shield's gonna go. So if I look right there, oop, granted it's not touching a wall or something, oop, that's touching a wall, and then if suddenly that one's not, it'll fade through it. So even if there's a wall in the way, as long as you're not looking at the wall itself, like here, the barrier will go through. So if you're wondering about whether or not a barrier will get somewhere, make sure that you thread the needle with your cursor and then fire it. It can definitely save people's lives. So the other things about his ultimate is it does exactly, I believe, half damage to any hero that gets slammed by it. Even if they're flying, they go straight up and then straight down. From what I know, there's no one that can avoid this. Maybe Arisa in heavy metal mode, we'll call it that. But I think even she gets caught up in it because it affects gravity, and Sigma's pretty strong. It's not like her getting heavy is going to really stop him controlling gravity. So when enemies fly up, there's a specific way that you want to target them in that ultimate ability. So we'll destroy these guys and wait for a moment. You want to make sure you have your shield down. You want to make sure that you can, if you're going to get a lot of benefit from using kinetic grasp, use it, because you won't be able to use any abilities in your ultimate. So make sure you got the shield down. Make sure you've used kinetic grasp if you need to. And then what you're going to do is you're going to aim your ultimate somewhere around the enemies. Hopefully, try and get them all in a big group or cluster. And then as you and them fly up, take a shot at a squishy target. Don't go for tanks, because the rest, leave that to the rest of your team. And if there's less squishy targets on the field, it's going to make it easier to kill the tanks anyway. They won't have anyone to really protect except themselves. And then once you've hit them once in the air, they'll get slammed back down. You want to hit them once on the ground as well. So you hit them up, you shoot at them, and then you hit them on the ground. I did that very poorly, but that's generally how you want to do it. Even if a Reinhardt's charging across the map at you, they will still get caught up on that. And that's everything. I think that's everything I know for Sigma that's useful and helpful at the moment. If you guys learn any more tech for him, let me know. If this was helpful, feel free to let people know. He's a very barrier character, and he should be able to get a lot of DPS out. If you're not doing a lot of damage with Sigma and getting gold limbs and gold damage, or at least top 3, then something might be wrong. Unless you're playing all DPS or something. So you want to bring them up, shoot at them again. And you want to make sure that your shots hit. Don't worry about spamming shots as fast as you can, because you basically only get to shoot once and then twice. Maybe 3 times, but then you'd have to try and aim all 3 shots on the way up, at the start of the ultimate, and on the way down. If you get killed or stunned during Sigma's ultimate, granted you pushed the attack button beforehand, you can actually still continue the attack, so they'll still get slammed down to the ground if you've gone for it, and that can be rather useful. So definitely make sure you're doing that. Know that if you shoot your enemies at point blank with your spheres, you still get hit by the AoE damage, and it explodes around you. And you'll take damage for it, like that. So be wary if you are in 5 health or something. I mean, it's probably better to get the kill either way, but it's just something to be aware of. But if you put down your shield, well, you know, you can always put down your shield and then just shoot close range, and you won't get hit by the splash damage. So there's a fair few ways to use that. And it looks like if you get 2 shots on a squishy in the air, by the time they slam down, they might just die. So you could probably use it on one target, then go to hit another one. And you might even get 2 kills and 2 squishies. But yeah, most of the time, you're not going to be trying to kill with just the ultimate ability alone. And if you do get a kill that way, then congratulations, that's pretty neat. Also, if you're not pushing down the jump button, then holding it down, then you're just going to fall. You're not going to float upwards. But yeah, also be aware that while you're floating upwards, they can also float and they can move. So if you get a Brigida or something right here, and she floats up, granted, you know, they float that high or something, they're able to move, say, onto the platform, even if they wouldn't have been able to by just going up vertically. yeah, it's also a good way to just make space for your team. Make sure your team knows coordinate attacks. You can combine it with other ultimates if you want, like Torb, put some molten lava on the floor, and they'll all get slammed into it, I guess. And that could be pretty unique. If you're afraid of getting hit and knocked out of your ultimate, just use it as soon as possible. And you should be pretty safe. And they shouldn't be able to get out anyway. As far as defending against Sigma goes, there's only so many things that you can do in the air. Reinhardt's pretty good for it. He can shield his team somewhat. Roadhog can just eat the damage and save himself, which is pretty alright. Orisa can't really do anything at all. She can't put a shield down because it lands on the ground. So that's only for when she lands. Batiste can sometimes put a lamp down if you're not getting flown up very high. Because I'm pretty sure you can only get saved from, you know, mortality and whatever if you are under the lamp's shade. So important to note there, if it's a low ceiling, you can probably get saved, but if not, maybe you can't. Although I haven't done a lot of testing with immortality, so I couldn't really tell you a lot. And you can last this clock out until the last sort of second, and then go for it if you want. Ooh. Alright. Also, I've been told that I don't know if this is true or not, but a buddy of mine apparently was versing a Sigma. Sorry if I called him Sigmund during this. And apparently used his ultimate, lifted the entire team up off the payload, the enemy team. And because they were up in the air for those few seconds, overtime just went by and they lost the game. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. Because, yeah, they got lifted off the payload. So that's something to be aware of, although I don't think it will happen at the very start of overtime. It will have to take a little bit when the clock starts ticking down real fast. So Sigma is only as good as the player's mind is open and flexible, guys. Keep that in mind. If your brain's pretty active and reflexive, then you're able to like shoot a barrier that way, look over here, get some shots out, check your shield health in the bottom left corner, help some more teammates, see that this one's in trouble, get over here. You know, it's all about prioritizing where you need to be and what you need to be paying attention to. And if you can do that, then you're going to be playing a good Sigma. It's about making your shots count. I don't know if headshots do more damage. Actually, that's something I should test without exploding the other one. Body shots. Okay. Headshots. Yeah. No, it's static damage all the way. So getting headshots doesn't matter. Aim for wherever you want on their bodies. Be careful what floors you're going for. Oh, Sigma's also one of the hardest characters to get used to, apparently. We'll see about that. I'm not sure if Genji's harder than Sigma. I think Genji's harder to play than Sigma. But I think Sigma requires you to be really reflective and think about what you're doing and have good communication with your team. I mean, Genji also does, but it's helpful. That's all I'm really gonna say. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, you learned something, and I don't know, maybe you'll pick up Sigma as a character or feel like you're a little bit more content with him. Because a lot of being good with Sigma, a lot of it just comes down to learning this sort of stuff now. And then expanding on these basics. It's about shield management, don't leave your shield out for too long. That's a huge one because you don't want to be left with a broken shield. Recharge it when you can. Still save it for the important plays. Couple that rock with some primary fire. Sigma's pretty cool, he's pretty in-depth. I like him as a character. He, yeah. Alright. Alright, with that, guys, thank you. Support each other and take care, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye.